We could start. Got it. Thank you very much. And thank you for your talk. Does anyone have a question?
I have a question.
A bodhisattva question.
Well,
Yes.
I don't know if it's a bodhisattva question, but it's a question. So yesterday at the class when we were talking about the temple rules,
Yeah.
okay, and so um, salt is salty and sugar is sweet has been rotating in my head, and in I think in the compass of Zen, a Zen master of Song uses that as truth, quote unquote truth. But I I guess I don't understand how that's truth because sugar is sugar because somebody decided a long time ago to call it sugar, and then to say that sugar tastes sweet and salt is salt because somebody decided that should be. I mean, if somebody, whoever decided that salt was going to be salt and sugar was going to be sugar, could have done the other thing and said that salt, what we know as salt, should be called sugar. And I know I'm overthinking this, but still, it's it's arbitrary. I mean, the names that we give things are arbitrary. We just all agree that we're going to call these things the
Yeah.
things that we call them.
So
So
would you be
I'm not
happier
sure
if it said
what
what we
truth
call
is.
salt is salty and what we call sugar is sweet?
Can you repeat that?
Would you be happier? Would it be better if we said instead of salt is salty, what we call salt is salty and what we call sweet is sweet? Or is that saying the same thing, really?
Well, I just don't know how that's truth. I don't know if I'd be happy or not happy. It would be the same. It's still truth because somebody decided that. So what is truth? I guess
So,
that's my question. What is truth then?
yeah, what are you doing right now?
Pondering whether salt is salt and whether sugar is sugar.
Is that the truth?
Who
Yeah.
knows?
I don't think you're lying, Liz. I think that really is the truth. Language is arbitrary. Yeah. Salt was a Latin word, and it was taken over to English. In fact, 40% of our vocabulary is originally Latin. And sugar, likewise. You can call these things whatever you want. Some people actually have made up their own languages. It's quite an exercise. The ones I'm familiar with have about 2,000 words each, which is maybe all that you really need. Maybe we have too many words. It gets complicated after a while, doesn't it? But don't be deceived by language. Always see the essence, see what the language is pointing to. That's what's important. So language is a way, a verbal way, it can be sound or it can be writing, of pointing to something, of identifying it in some way so that our experiences can be shared. So the purpose of language is communication, so that I can know what is on Liz's mind right now. Happens to be salt and sugar right now, but it could be anything. So language is that sort of tool that helps us to understand each other. So we do have a responsibility to be as clear and as accurate as we can and not misrepresent anything. That misrepresentation is usually called lying. So it actually becomes an ethical issue. How do we use language? We can use it to help, or we can use it to hurt. You might say, well, most of the time it's pretty neutral. All of our chanting is language, except for the Great Dharani, which is not. Great Dharani is just sound. There are scholars who have tried to translate the Great Dharani, but no two of them ever remotely agree with each other. So you figure, well, they're not getting, very far with that. Mantras usually have meaning of some sort, but if it doesn't have meaning, we call it a dharani. Maybe that's enough about sound and language, though. But thank you for bringing this up. It's not an insignificant question at all, and I don't think it has any straightforward, comprehensive solution, like most things in life. So thank you. Any other questions? Yes. Mike.
I hear people say doing something will deepen your practice.
Mm-hmm.
Use the term deepen your practice.
Yeah.
And if practice is just sitting and, repeating your practice,
Mm-hmm.
doing your practice, how is it getting deepened? What does that mean?
Yeah. The opposite of deep is shallow. So if you're just very superficially, doing your mantra, and your mind is flitting all about, we would call that a very shallow practice. It maybe looks like practice, but it has no depth, no meaning, no strong effect. So whatever your practice is, if you're doing it 100%, it almost doesn't matter what the practice is. So Zen Master Sun San used to say, you can chant Coca-Cola if you want. Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola. It's not a bad mantra, really. Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola. It's got a lot of And if you do it 100%, whereas if you do the Heart Sutra and you're daydreaming, you might as well chant Coca-Cola. You're better off. Do we have a list of all of our mantras? I thought we did somewhere. It might be worth compiling, such a list of all of the mantras, that we have or that are in Buddhism. Maybe some of them, we don't use. But they come into use and remain in use because there's something efficacious about the pure sound. Otherwise, people wouldn't, keep doing them. I've never successfully made up a mantra. Once I tried. Okay, this is going to be the Lombardo mantra. Everybody, and chant Hae Kwang Son Sa Hae Kwang Son Hae Kwang Zen Master. But I never got anywhere with that, and it's a good thing. But the most important thing is whatever the practice is, whether it's just reciting a mantra or chanting or bowing, sitting practice is to do it 100%. That means put all of your energy into it. If you're like most people, most Zen students, if in spite of your best efforts to put everything into it, you notice far from putting everything into it, you're not really doing it anymore. You just have stopped and have decided to daydream for a few minutes and get caught up in some fantasy. That's a very common experience. But whenever that happens, just bring your mind back. It's as if you're taming a wild animal. And our minds are like wild animals. Hard to control, but possible to control and possible to bring around to do some real good. So we chant out loud together. And that kind of together action is very important. When we sit, we're sitting in the same room, and out of somewhere in the field of our vision, without gawking around, there are other people who are present, and that kind of together action is really the heart of practice. It's not that solo practice is out of the question. Zen Master Hae did a 90-day solo retreat, in a cabin in the mountains in southern Colorado. I did, being some small fraction of Judy, I did a 3-week retreat in the same cabin, you know. My experience was that this was good, strong, real practice. And you know, during that solo retreat, it's not that I felt lonely or missed other people to practice with. You know, it was my first substantial solo retreat, so I was, you know, I wondered about that. You know, the practice is, you know, for all beings and with as many beings as you can manage to get into a room at a given time. If you're interested in doing a solo retreat, you really need a few years of actual practice experience, I would say. But if you're in that situation and you think you might want to do it, please talk, you know, to myself or to Zen Master Hae. I think there is something that serves as a retreat center within short driving distance. Do you remember? Yeah, yeah. So it's possible to do it without driving to Southern California. So thank you for your question, and it led to, you know, other avenues. Are there any other questions?
Somebody, well, I guess I should take the mic.
Yeah, the mic.
I heard somebody say once, or I read somewhere, that what we are is really just a collection of our habits.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look at myself, I see I have a lot of habits, good and bad.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe bad's too strong a word, but more efficacious, less efficacious, something like that. But is that, you know, and then I've also heard, well, we're just, you know, kind of a collection of what we are is just a collection of our thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be interested if you have any comment on that.
Yeah. If what we are is just a collection of our thoughts, then what are you when you are practicing? What am I? Don't know. So you don't have to answer that. It's a rhetorical question. At the end of his book, The Compass of Zen, which is, you know, this thick, and which covers Hinayana Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism, and Zen Buddhism in great depth with many, many quotations, he has a little afterword. And the afterword starts something, you know, to this effect. Yeah, people say, you know, that I teach Zen, that I can also teach just Mahayana Buddhism, Hinayana Buddhism, but I don't teach any of that. The only thing that I teach is don't know. And then this is, I said, just a 2 or 3 page afterward, he goes on to tell a story about a monk who was accosted by a demon. And it's a great story. You should look it up just for this story. I won't tell the whole thing now. The monk says, okay, you know, if you can find me, then I will become your servant. And the monk, who's practiced a lot and has some of special powers, just immediately removes himself to some temple way up in the Alps, far, far away, and the demon finds him there just like that. And then he hides himself, he becomes a tiger up on a rock. He transforms himself, and the monk is a tiger, and the demon finds him. And they had agreed that if the demon finds him 3 times in a row, the monk will become the demon's servant. So I said, okay, 1 more time. So this time, he doesn't go anywhere. He just steps behind a tree and keeps a perfect don't know mind. And the demon finally gives up. You know, I can't find you anywhere. And so then he teaches the demon don't know. So this practice can save your life, don't know. And you may think that you'll never be accosted by a demon, but if you reflect for just a few moments, I think you'll realize we're constantly assaulted by demons. We call them thoughts, So what do you do about these demons? So we have time maybe for one more question. If not, we will resort to announcements. Thank you.
Could you turn off the recording?